So those are all the pieces of our active composting process. The last thing we'll do before going to curing is recover bulking agents. So this is just accomplished by screening mostly to get our big chunks of wood chips or whatever we've added in to maintain the free airspace. And then all the organics are smaller and we'll go on to curing in the next step. In our curing phase, so we've done our spike with our active composting. Now we've got our harder to degrade material just slowly continuing for a few more weeks or months. So this is where our fungi and our actinomycetes are going to start growing and doing their work. In the picture on the right, you can see there's kind of this gray or white kind of sheen to the material, and that's all the actinomycetes and fungi growing, and they kind of make this mat across. And if you are in the forest and you kind of dig in, you might see something similar to this. So as we get to the end of curing, we're going to keep drying out. All the organics left are going to be really stable material. No one's really able to eat them anymore. They're just going to hang out. And this class of material is called humic substances. So humus is a soil that's really organic and it's made of all these humic substances. We're also going to be treating any ammonia that's formed and forming nitrate. So it's not going to have that ammonia odor anymore, and it's going to be in a form that plants can use it later on. Now, the test of when compost is finished curing is when it reaches two criteria, stability and maturity. So stability refers to the rate of metabolism happening in that material. When a material is stable, there's going to be less than 4 milligrams of carbon per gram of organic matter of CO2 being produced every day. So that means the bacteria are just like barely breathing anymore. There's really not too much activity happening anymore. Earlier in the active composting, there'd be a way, way higher rate. And if we measured that, we would be able to say, okay, this is not stable yet. And this can be determined by a respirometry test where you'll actually take a sample and you'll measure how much oxygen it's consuming and how much CO2 it's producing. And this is similar to the biological oxygen demand test if you've done that for wastewater. Maturity is the other criteria. So where stability is looking at the respiration rate to measure the metabolism, maturity is looking at the ability of plants to grow in the material. So in the beginning, there might be phytotoxic elements, so different organics present in the waste, which may prevent plants from growing. As the composting has continued, those compounds should have been broken down by the composting process, and you should be able to grow plants in it. So the whole point of composting, going back in the circular economy, is so that we can do landscaping, gardening, and agriculture with the material and return the nutrients back to the system. So even if the nutrients are there, if there's some other organics that are going to be toxic to the plants, it's just going to ruin our whole plant. So maturity measures whether all those have been eliminated, and that's literally done just by a seed germination test. So they put seeds in the material, and if they're able to germinate and grow, then you know that other plants will be able to germinate and grow as well. So once we meet those two criteria, then we're ready to actually put our compost out into the world. At that point, we'll do a final screening, and this both creates different grades of material that you can give away for different purposes. So for potting soil versus different landscaping purposes. And it also gets to remove our contamination. We could also do a magnet to remove metals at this stage if that was something that we wanted to remove from our process that the screening wouldn't do. We're going to get more bulking agents out that maybe we didn't get out earlier. And when we have these different fractions, you can really drive more revenue by marketing different like specialty products from our compost. So instead of just raw compost, you can make different mixes that are suited to different types of gardening. And that's a way to help fund the rest of the compost process and make sure it's financially sustainable. This final screening would be achieved by equipment such as an air classifier or a trommel. As well as other equipment such as an electromagnet that you might use. We're going to look at a whole bunch of material separation technologies in the next chapter, and some of those might also apply here. The way the air classifier works is the waste is kind of thrown and subjected to different air currents, which will leave some of the heavy stuff, so like broken glass and stones, and pull off the lightest stuff like film plastic, and then send the other material through, and you can get a few different fractions of material, as well as a trommel, which will both retain some of the contamination. So the big pieces like plastic bags might make it all the way through and be separated on the end. Really small stuff like broken glass would come out in the beginning. And then those middle fractions would be the usable compost fractions, and you could get a few sizes. So in the picture on the left, you can see there's some bigger pieces, and on the right, there's some smaller pieces coming out. Once we've been through all that, the material is going to need to be stored until it can get out the door. In the picture on the right is an example of bad storage. So you can see there's plants growing all over the compost. Likely that's going to be full of weed seeds when it goes off to where it needs to be. So good storage would be covered, dust controlled, so there's not compost blowing everywhere to adjacent lots. We don't want it to get wet and go anaerobic or start producing leachate. We don't want plants to be in it. And all this material is nice and dry, and it can pose a fire risk actually. So we want to make sure that it is stored in compliance with the fire code at this stage. When it's got a buyer, then it will go out in bulk or in bags, and we'll get all those benefits to the soil of using the compost out in the world.